listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh and whatever special guest he has today. You can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good. And follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey everyone, welcome to the program. We have taken the show on the road for, I think, the third time in the history of the podcast. We are recording in Ledyard, Connecticut on a Tuesday, May the 6th. And I'm visiting my dad in Ledyard, Connecticut, southeastern Connecticut. Cold and rainy here. We need some of this rain to send it down to Florida because we're in a drought and the grass is getting really brown on my front lawn. I'm sure my neighbors at Lakeland National feel the same way. Golf courses, we could all use. If we could just like magically transport the weather from one region to another, things would be absolutely perfect. But it is what it is. So big thanks, by the way, to Van Earl Wright, who was with us for 2 editions. I hope you enjoyed Van Earl as much as I did. I practically grew up watching the guy on TV. It was a big inspiration to me in my broadcast career because I saw the way he rolled and I'm like, man, I want to do that. And I want to do it like him with the pizzazz that he had. And then later to discover the professional struggles that he had in his life, his personal struggles. And then he ends up in a situation similar to me, caddying full time and loving it. Who'd have thunk that? How did that all work out? And Van Earl, obviously very articulate, made himself vulnerable. That's what we appreciate about people like Van Earl and the people that come on the show. They keep it real. They make themselves real, tell great stories, make themselves vulnerable. Just real good, honest, solid conversation. Big thanks to the golf real estate pros, Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro from suncoastdreams.com. If you're looking to live in a golf resort community similar to Lakewood Ranch or Lakewood National Golf Club, where this podcast usually originates from, although not on this day, then Gene and Vince are your people. And a lot of viewers have been enjoying the sidebar thing when Gene comes on board and talks about the market and what's going on. It's been a good week for Vince and Gene at suncoastdreams.com. Some big opportunities coming their way. And I think a lot of it has to do with this podcast. So we're thankful for that and thankful for all you do. We're also thankful to have Party Drinks as the title sponsor of this. If you indulge on the golf course, if you like a cold, refreshing beverage that has a little adult horsepower in it, try a Party for golfers, by golfers, way better than White Claw, way better than High Noon. And if you don't have Party on the drink cart at your golf course, you ought to get it there and you ought to talk to the golf staff and say, hey, look, this is something that we want to have. And by the way, Paradise Craft Distributors is the exclusive supplier of Party across the state of Florida. All right, so that is the preamble here. Let's bring in our guest today, Denver Longmire, one of my caddy buddies. Denver, it's great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You got it, buddy. Let me just start by telling you how much I enjoy caddying with you. You do a solid job, but more than anything, you really seem to put your heart and soul into it. A personal side to you, relentlessly positive. Am I describing the caddy you think you are or that you want to be?
Yeah, you know what? Thank you very much. I try to keep the headspace that way. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but yes, sir. Thank you very much.
So where are you joining us from? Where's home for you? Where are you hanging your hat, bud?
My hat hangs in Lakeland, Florida, just not, probably a little hour south or north of you, from Sarasota. So a little town, Lakeland, well-known sheriff. So may know him, may not know him.
I think we know him. He's the guy when things happen and bullets ring out, and then the media asks, "Well, why did you shoot so many times?" Ran out of bullets.
Ran out of bullets. Exactly.
Not really a small town anymore. In fact,
No.
It's the fastest growing city in Florida. Now, who would have believed that years ago? But that's true. But where's home for you? Where do you originate from?
I originate from Ohio area as a kid. Birth to middle school. things of that nature. And then, transplanted down during the 80s down in Tampa area to finish up middle school, high school, all the impactful things that go on in your teenage years.
What hometown specifically in Ohio, and describe the town for me? Take me there. Let me feel it.
Well, it's not so small like it was, but it was a small town called Sidney in Ohio, just right off of I-75. I mean, used to you blink and you go right past it, but now there's some good old signs. So I get up there, once, twice, a couple of years to visit family. Still got a lot of roots up there. So, a lot of times I relate more with the saying I'm a Midwestern than with Florida sometimes. So, definitely like the Midwest.
Well, your name fascinates me endlessly. It almost sounds like it's not real. Like maybe it's a pen name for a well-known author or a stage name for an actor. Tell me about it.
It's a family name. Man, I'll be honest. I was kind of ashamed to go with it. Growing up, I went by my initials, which is DJ. And, if you're a lifelong friend or, family member, I still go by that. The people in my life, if you call me Denver, which is a family name. My father's name is Denver. And then I also have a son, which I passed on that name to him as well. So it's a generational name. Not really too much of an exciting story, but my grandmother was super religious and she followed a preacher. And so my dad was actually named after a Baptist preacher back in the late 40s or 50s. So
that's a great story. That's how names originate, especially when mothers and grandmothers get involved and they want to keep passing it down.
Yes.
I knew there had to be a story behind it. So, I mean, that's the endless curious bug in me. I'm just going to ask it and just keep peeling back layers until I get an answer. So you came to Florida when you were in middle school. What was the purpose behind the family move?
It was, economics. I grew up in the mid 80s in Ohio, and economically, there was just a lot of changes going on. The opportunities were in Florida. I have a lot of childhood friends that I grew up with. Their parents were making the move. So, it's kind of like our circle of friends were moving to Florida. So my folks, decided they were going to, follow it right behind them. So, I went from a really small town, small school, knew everybody since kindergarten, all the way up to, a big town like Tampa. And then, all of a sudden you're integrated with, thousands of kids from all, different, grade levels. It was quite the culture shock. But I really believe that root system, those experiences really helped shape me, to who I am today, a little bit.
Well, before caddying entered the picture when you were in school, wrestling was a big part of your life, for better or worse? For worse in the beginning, right?
Yes.
Why don't we go there?
I was always fascinated with wrestling. When I was in Ohio, I had a neighbor. He would wrestle in junior high, and I'd always be the little scapegoat and, his little wrestling dummy. But I always had a liking for it. So once I got into high school, it was kind of like, I played baseball, played all these different sports. And also too, I think I took wrestling because I just wanted a little bit of, learn a little bit of self-defense. I wanted to just be able to take care of myself kind of thing. So, growing up in middle school, for me, there's some challenges, your fist fights here and there, little arguments at the bus stop, just teenage stuff. And so, I just, it's a school activity. And, I like to wrestle. I like to get down and, dirty. And, it was just a great experience.
But it wasn't really a great experience because at some point you quit, perhaps definitely on the team, perhaps on yourself. You got it back. Why don't you tell the story? For
sure. Yeah. I mean, so my freshman year, I joined the wrestling team, And so, obviously, if you pick up any sport that you're new at and have no clue about, balance, anything. So I ultimately went defeated. I lost every round. But, I was still diligent with learning because I think that, and, one of the lessons I had learned was you got to go through the uncomfortable to become comfortable. So, I took it on the chin. Like, every match. I don't think I made it out of the first period, so, but I'm not I'm competitive, and I like to dig in there and just, if you're going to learn golf, it's got to be a way of life, and wrestling had to be a way of life. So I wrestled every day. Summer school came around. I took driver's ed just so I could hang out because my wrestling coach did driver's ed. So, I did driver's ed, and then after driver's ed, a lot of the wrestling team as well took driver's ed, and then we would wrestle afterwards. So I spent that whole summer wrestling, got a part-time job, started taking a couple of judo classes to really learn about balance and grip and rolling and, all the foundational things that come with judo. And then, the wrestling season came in. I was so excited. I wrestled people who were, 25, 30, 40 pounds heavier than me. Then I would wrestle somebody, 103, 110, just because you learn quickness, and then you learn, against a heavier body, you learn a little bit more of agility and stuff. So, however, I went into my first match just pretty excited, probably a little overexcited. Went into it and just got, whooped all over the mat, just lost. And so after that round was, yes.
So this was like a supreme ass kicking after a season of ass kicking.
Oh man, he was on my ass. He was on my ass like a back pocket. Let me tell you, it was just, it was not good, humbling. But I did quit. Shortly, I think maybe the next day, the day after that, I just felt so defeated. All the hard work that I put into all the wrestling, all the woe is me stuff, So, I quit. And then once it, yes, sir. Did you have a question?
So you quit, and you probably weren't feeling real good about yourself. Maybe your teammates are making you not feel so good about yourself, your coach. But then you want to get back and do it right. So why don't you describe the humble pie you had to eat to get back on the team, and how that fueled you from that point on?
Yeah, so, a week later, I just, once I came to my senses, I went to the coach. It might not even been a week. It was, enough time to kind of settle in. But I went to the coach and was like, Coach, I'm sorry, I quit on you. I'm sorry I quit. And so I got the big speech. You didn't quit on, you quit on your team. You quit on yourself, and you've put in a lot of hard work. And, the little pep talk. But he's like, you just can't quit and then ask for your way back on. Life just don't work that way. So you got to really, let me talk with the team, and we'll see if you can earn your spot back on. Come back to me after school today. So I came back after class, and, it was like, all right, we're going to let you wrestle. So come back in, I don't know, maybe a day or two later. And so I showed up. And he happens, my wrestling coach, it kind of set me up in a good way, but also set me up in kind of like, I had a ball of muscle. So they put me up to this guy who's just nothing but arms and legs and chest, and he's just a big round ball. And so,
So this is not the smooth re-entry. This is like you're going to get an ass kicking.
Yep. He
teach you a little bit of a lesson.
Exactly. And it was a really good lesson because, there's times that when you're an adult, you look back in your life and certain struggles, some are, bigger struggles than, sometimes they're little struggles, but you still fall back on a lot of these life lessons. And so, I got in there and represented. I would end up pinning him. And, I learned a lot about myself, that my wants, my desire, and that when I put my mind to it and when I focus, I can be successful. And so, not to drag the story on long, but, the rewarding part is I got back onto the team. And then the rest of the season, I went 15-1. And it was just so focused. I don't even remember it. Like I was just kind of like in this zone, like you would when you're playing 18 holes and you got a round of your life. You're just, there's no worries, there's no stress. Like you're just in the zone. And so,
it got you to the place. All that drama, all that pain that you had was a necessary course that you had to go through to get to the place where you needed to be. Yeah. And you almost were 15. Well, holy smokes, man. That is that's doing some thumping.
Oh, right, it was awesome. I remember the very last match of the season. I'm kind of like to just blend in with the crowd. I never stood out. I never asked for a lot of, drama. I never brought it. So to be in our last match of our day or, of our year, and he used me as an example to motivate the team, talking about wrestle world class. It didn't even, it just put my head down and blah, 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 blah. What a great example to be, and then we went out there and I think we played Gaither High School, if I remember. I don't, again, it's so long ago, but I remember we finished strong. And, we just whooped that tail. And, it was just one of those great experiences that I take with me almost daily.
And not just the 15-1 record after rejoining the team, but really what the coach said before your final match. I imagine you still hear his words in your head and in your heart. Is that right?
Yeah. It just, about staying focused, not allowing myself to get distracted by a lot of outside noise, not allowing myself to get defeated by what happened at the year, at the beginning of the, of the year. Like I just forgot about it. I just showed up to practice. I worked my tail off. I wrestled all my teammates. I'd go home. I had a little brother. I even used him as a little wrestling dummy.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. Everybody needs a little brother for that. Yeah. Me and my brother Mike. Well, see, you were doing like real wrestling moves, Greco-Roman style. I was doing WWE stuff on my brother, including the camel clutch and the figure four leg lock. And oh man, maybe we should bring my brother Mike on to talk about it.
Brotherly love. So, but yes.
So let's move it on to graduating from high school. Was college a consideration? Where were you in life about the next step?
College was a consideration, but growing up, I had a big cousin who was in ROTC. Back then, there was a lot of nationalism, so and it was understood to me that 18, once I graduated high school, it was no more free ride from my parents. It was get a job, which I already had a job, but like get a trade, a skill, whether that be go to college, whether it be go to the military. So, but I always knew growing up that I'd be military. It was something that attracted to me, between movies like Top Gun, to, some of these other, art military movies. I mean, Stripes, you're just kind of like, it was just the thing to do back then. And it was the best thing that I ever did for myself. Again, it's just one of those experiences that sit with me today.
So you joined the Navy. What'd you do?
Sir. I worked on F-18s back, I guess you call it a plane captain. You just kind of start at the bottom. Plane captains, basically, you're moving the airplane around anytime it needs to move around the flight deck or the flight line if you're on land. You get in, you pre-check it with all the knobs, brakes, belts. The pilot's got to get in there, and basically it's got to be uniform every time. And then you do a pre-check, checking the engines, all the little, rivets that are in, making sure that no screws are missing, things of that nature. Just a lot of pre-check, which was really great because being a part of that squadron, I was able to go to Top Gun and see real Top Gun. I was able to go overseas 2 times. I've been overseas, been to Hong Kong twice, Singapore, Australia, the Middle East, countless of times, because you're out 2 weeks, you pull back in. So I think we end up at, 11 times I got to visit the UAE. So I'm kind of excited. It's been a long time. I was just talking to a friend of mine about getting back over there and just seeing the growth of Dubai and all that. Because, it was the early 90s, mid 90s when I was, out there. So, but the Navy was a great experience. I did my full 4 years. I did suffer some challenges while I was in and had the opportunity to medically discharge. But again, I think that was that wrestler in me, that dog in me. I'm not quitting. I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to finish my commitment. So, and yeah, then I came home to Tampa.
Denver Longmire is our guest. He's one of my caddy buddies. He served in the U.S. Navy, is a very good golfer, very good caddy. Big thanks to Party Drinks, the title sponsor. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try it Party. Party is distributed exclusively by Paradise Craft Distributors. If you don't have it at your golf course, you ought to get it. And a big thanks to the golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro from suncoastdreams.com. If your dream is to live in a golf resort community similar to Lakewood National Golf Club, Gene and Vince can help you out. And business has been good, and there is opportunities, and nobody better than Vince and Gene to help you out. So, Denver, your time in, aside from serving your country, which I appreciate very much.
My pleasure.
The Navy served you in another capacity, and it introduced you to golf. How did that happen?
It sure did. Like my bosses, they would be, "Hey, you want to come out and play golf with us this weekend?" Things like that. I'm like, I ain't playing that sissy sport. There's no way, So, but I eventually went out there, and I remember my first 9-iron shot over these trees into this blind. It was completely blind. I'm hacking it around. I mean, hacking is we probably needed corn seed for all the divots, It was just not good. But I hit this perfect 9-iron, and it landed a little bit by the cup. I was hooked. So I spent, I would go behind the barracks. I remember there was a big wide open field, and I'd take my 9-iron, and I just drop a bunch of balls, and I try to hit the barracks. It was just a big old brick building with a few windows, so it wasn't anything like where I was gonna, Plus, it was way out there. So
one pure shot. That's all it took.
That's all it took. It was hooked, and I tell guys all the time, new golfers that I meet, and it's like once you get that first. Once you really get that first complete shot that is a golf swing, a golf shot, you're hooked. You're like, okay, let's do this again. So, and then
that's a lot of things in life when you finally taste it and feel it, and then I get it now. Yeah, I'm in the club. Okay, so yeah. So you fell for it hard, which is cool. You did it because your supervisors, your superiors wanted you to do it. So there's a little all good. It got you to a good place. When did caddying start entering the picture?
Oh man, caddying came in so late in life. I was in my mid 30s when I actually started caddying. I used to be a project manager building hotels, so I traveled a lot. For years, building hotels in Cleveland, Nashville, Omaha. And so when I got home, I was exhausted. And at that point in my life, I was living in Fayetteville, North Carolina, just 45 minutes from Pinehurst. And so when I got home from this project, being completed, it was just kind of like, I'm going to go do something part-time just to kind of keep money coming in, but, keep my stress levels low, relax the bodies. I mean, when you're on some of these projects, you're working 80, 90, plus hours a week. So, you might get a few hours of sleep and then you're back on the job site. So it gets pretty exhausting. Well, I'm looking for a part-time gig, and there was an ad on Craigslist about the 2014 U.S. Open coming to Pinehurst. And I was like, well, shoot, man. Like one of my favorite things when I lived back home was I like to go to football games, and I like to go to hockey games, and I like to go to baseball games. And sometimes it's just a little bit out of your price range. However, if you go and work parking, or if you go work you work some, you can actually be a part of these events. And so I was like, you know what?
Oh, dude. Hey, listen, you're telling my whole life story. The reason I worked in pro sports more than anything was so I could get in the game.
Yeah.
Somehow I convinced them to pay me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Dude,
all right, keep talking. Keep going.
I mean, through those experiences, I've gotten to be a part of like some NHL playoffs, Stanley Cups, a Super Bowl, a Major League Baseball playoff. Like I've gotten some of these major sports, gotten to check some things off my bucket list. So here I am just sitting in North Carolina, scrolling, seeing for something fun to do. And there's an ad. Pinehurst caddies wanted, blah, 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 and then it gave, the company's information. You go on, fill out the application, they call you, and they're, trying to test your golf IQ and, just basic questions. What's a par 4,
I know.
Yeah, just to make sure that you have the basics of caddying down. And so, it was just, it was really cool. Went in, I did some training. I didn't realize caddying was going to have training. I mean, most jobs, corporate jobs, you got this 2-week training processes, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Caddying does too. You got to, you never want to stand behind the player. So what do? You stand belt to belt. How do you look uniform when guests look around the golf course? You stand everybody stands on the correct side of the box. If it's a right-hander, you stand on the right side of the box. If it's a left-hander, you go to, you look around the golf course. It's pretty uniform. And I'm like, my goodness, they gave me a script to learn. I went in there a couple of times with like a sergeant version of the 4-caddy, script. And then I went in the next day and I don't know, it might have been a cowboy or something. I just added all these different personalities just to make the guys laugh. But it helped me remember the script as well. And then also those processes, like I don't even think about them today. It's all rote now. It's just kind of, it's just kind of, I don't even think about it.
Yeah, because you've done it so much. I mean, it's now muscle memory.
Exactly.
So what do you think? And you got it. You've got it down. I know you do the stuff you're supposed to do, but then you put a little bit of yourself into that, which I think is great because everybody has a personality that should come out.
Well, service.
Tell me what you think makes a good caddy. What are you trying to bring to the table?
Well, I can't say this is gospel with every loop because every situation is different. Everyone looks at the game in a different manner. And so really, once I get up there and do my introductory, I mean, it'll be 2, 3, 4 holes before we really get to know. I mean, there's some nervous energy and things of that nature. So what I'm looking for is just keeping everything really basic because I want to learn how they see the game. They play so many rounds without a caddy. Now you got a caddy experience. So I don't want to interrupt if you've been in a good, in a good place with your golf game where you're turning in 70s, maybe you're, a 90s player and you're finally broke 90. I don't want to come in there and start, hey, play it my way. It doesn't work that way. So I try to go in there from a service standpoint and make them feel like they're the most important person on the golf course, whether I have 4 people or 1 person. Each of them get the same, equal treatment. There are most definitely different personalities. You might have 3 guys that are absolutely sweet as chocolate pie, but then you have that other guy that's just kind of like, he might not be the best golfer, might be a little bit intimidated by having a caddy, So when you go over there and ask, hey, can I help you with anything? I got 176 to the flag. I think you want to be a little bit short here versus long in case you're in between clubs. Is there anything else I can help? I'm good. They just get that nervous kind of, flight or fight kind of response. I'm good. Just, let me have my space.
You got to read. You got to read the room.
Exactly.
And then adjust accordingly. Give them what they want. It may not be what you think they want, but give them what they want. It's their day. And
exactly.
And like some good players, like the scratch player, doesn't need a lot other than like the yardage and the wind direction and everything. You don't need to tell him to take a hair or a finger off a 5-iron. He knows that, and
exactly
you know that. The higher handicap needs a little bit more hand holding. It's just you just adjust whoever it is. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yes, sir. It really is just knowing the room. It's not about having the perfect yardage. It's not about getting up there on the green and having the perfect read, because there's really not any of that out there. That's a delusion. I went by that delusion for a long time as a caddy. It's like, I'm going to give this guy a perfect read. This guy's going to have the perfect information, but it didn't work that way. You got to give your guys a bit of a margin of error. Like these 25 handicappers, if you tell them 155, they're pulling out their 150-yard club. They're not really pulling out their 160 club, because, they're playing it to be, perfect. I'm going to get a perfect swing here. Meanwhile, you've dealt the last 5. So, I always encourage, I'll give a bunch of numbers, to get them, because you can see them sorting out. I don't give them a bunch of numbers. That sounds confusing. But, you can see them sorting out whether, I need to be long, short, things of that nature. So you can always tell them, hey, man, if you can get 160 here, 165, it won't hurt you. And then, me, I know he just, hit it a little heavy that last time. Had he played maybe a half club more, he actually probably wouldn't be in this situation. However, at the end of the day, it's their choice. I try my darndest not to argue, this is, this is my course. I know what it's going to do, kind of. It's just like, hey, hit that club you trust, because it's about hitting the club you trust than the one you don't. The best thing about golf is just being able to get up there. If you got 148 to the flag and your favorite flag is that your favorite club is that 9-iron, boom, take the 9-iron, done with that decision, and now you're focusing on the forward. So in theory.
Close enough is good enough, as far as I'm concerned. Just like horseshoes, especially if it's a higher handicapper, and we probably deal with more of those than the low handicappers for sure.
You know what? If you can get those guys, those high handicappers, to have one of their best years best rounds of the year or their best round ever, for me, that is the most satisfying, rewarding thing that I've done. When I leave the course, it's kind of like, I got this guy. I helped this guy achieve some goals that he had never obtained before. Or this lady, or this young man or little lady, because we get all kinds out there, and, everybody's got some kind of goal out there. So, and it's just really rewarding to be able to be a part of that in some circumstances.
I just try to get them in a good headspace and just add to whatever it is they're doing. If they make a putt, hey, I made that putt too. I didn't roll the putt, but I put you on the read and stuff like that. I tell people all the time when they ask, what do you do? Why do you do this? What do you get out of it? I'm like, look, I'm playing golf. I'm just not hitting the shots. Just not hitting the shots.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie, I offer. Some of these guys are like, I don't know if I can make this putt. Well, I can. You want me to make it? Just to get them going. But yeah.
Tell me the story about caddying for the son of Ian Poulter. I look at Ian Poulter as one of the most fascinating people because he seems like a polarizing personality. He can sometimes, with the clothes, can get loud. With the behavior, can get a bit boisterous, feisty from the Ryder Cups and everything. What was your experience like with him?
Well, here's the thing. Just a small correction. I've got to spend time with Ian Poulter as a fellow caddy. He was caddying for his son during an event for a week for his son. And then his son played in England with a couple of young boys every day. And so they come over every year and play U.S. kids at Pinehurst. And so this family would come in, oh, yeah, we play, we know the Poulter family back home, blah, 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 blah. Well, the last year was actually with that family. Max and Toby come in. They come in a couple of weeks prior to the U.S. Kids tournament. And so just to play around and be kids, go out on the golf course. I let them drive around in the cart. Like, I'm that fun uncle, hey, go have fun. Just don't, be smart with it, and they go and have fun. And so Toby, he had this very, he was just such a sweet kid, he couldn't hold a secret if if he tied his lips shut. He just, he was like,
who is Toby? Is this Ian's
Toby
son?
is just, no. Toby, it's just one of the little boys, part of the family that they used to play golf with Luke. And so getting to, Toby, coming a week early, and Toby's like, man, we got a surprise for you, Mr. Denver. And I'm like, what is it? He's like, I can't tell you. I was like, come on, Toby, you can't do this to me. He's like, nah, Mom would be upset with me. I was like, okay, well, we don't want to upset Tracy. So, and then about 5 minutes later, he's like, okay, man, Ian Poulter is coming to hang out. He's going to caddy with Luke. I was like, what? So I got 2 weeks. I couldn't tell a soul. I couldn't tell any of my caddy buddies. I couldn't tell, hey, Ian Poulter's coming. I just kept it really close to the vest out of respect. And, and so that's how I really got to meet Mr. Poulter, was through that event.
So what happened on the loop though? Like there was a little dispute between father and son over grading putts.
I think that happens with every caddy player relationship, but from the unique perspective that I was in, being that here we go here, and my vantage point, like one of the greatest golfers ever. Short game, Ryder Cup, there's all these wonderful things that, make Mr. Poulter stand out. And so, it was just a real treat to, get to be on that side to where, we're out on the golf course and his son, we're maybe hole 11 by that time. We've already, been playing for a few hours. We did about hole 11 or 12, and, you just hear this chirping, going back and forth. You're just like, and, they weren't seeing eye to eye on the putt. So,
imagine that, father and son not seeing eye to eye on a golf course. So they're getting into it a little bit. And then, a couple holes later, my guy Max, Toby's brother, they're twins. So Max, he was always this low-key, chill, just really cool. All of a sudden, he starts arguing with Reeds. Like, I don't see that, all this stuff. And I'm like, uh-oh, I don't know what's going on here. But, man, just, hit your putt, my man. So we get done with that round. It was a really fun round. It was nothing serious. It was just, the boys getting to play, golf with Ian, Mr. Poulter. So we sat down for lunch and, pleasantries, normal talk. And then, suddenly, Mr. Poulter just kind of, talks about relationships, the relationship between a caddy and a player is very important. It's a lot more important than anybody will ever realize outside this game, but there are going to be times when the player is right and the caddy is wrong. And there's going to be times when the caddy is absolutely spot on and the player's not feeling it. He's not trusting that information. So, brings me to my point, Ian Poulter, Mr. Poulter's message that day was, it's better for your player to be 100% confident in their shot and trust it than to be 80, 70, 60%, into that shot. Because a lot of times you're not going to give the best effort. That player's not going to, just think about yourself when you're squirreling, whether or not you got the right club, or can I get over the water, or can I get over that bunker lip? It's just one of those things where
at the end of the day, and I also try to bring this into my caddy. Like a lot of guys or folks want your handheld while they're playing golf, or their handheld while they're playing golf. But you just got to kind of like, hey, your 7-iron's great. Trust your club. It's better to hit a club you trust than one you don't. And I use that phrase every time. It just keeps them in it, in that moment, because all they need is that 3 seconds of focus, 40 seconds for those long, who are standing long with the ball. But you just need that period of time of focus. And then if you can stay focused within that margin of length too, within that 1.5 feet, if you can keep your focus right in there, a lot of times, you're going to be successful with your favorite.
It's going to work out. That goes back to the close is good enough, but more so the bigger picture, having conviction. So if I have a read inside right and my player has it right edge, but I know that'll work, instead of saying, well, I got something different, I'm like, yes.
Semantics.
Because I know, yes. Just keep the confidence, keep it positive. So you really enjoy the conversation with the guests, but there was one there was one loop that you had that really changed your life, in that you were caddying for a board member from Zillow, and he said something to you, and that got you thinking about golf and life in a different way. What happened?
Not to get too deep, but one of the things that I've learned over the last several years of being out there caddying is that we're a product of our environment out there. So, there's guests that come from all over walks of life. I mean, CEOs, famous athletes, politicians, business leaders, like you name it. And so I just happened to be on a corporate round, which, these 4 players, they don't play golf. They're just, the company's treating them. And so, maybe one guy, I believe the gentleman from Zillow, was the best golfer. There was a female, a younger guy, and he got around, and, it was a shotgun that day. So, I think we were on hole 17 blue, and he just kind of pulled me aside and he's like, yo, do you ever read books about emotional intelligence or anything like that, or any leadership books? And I'm like, it's been a while, and he just goes on to tell me that he's watched me, the way that I handle all these, these folks, and would benefit me to, maybe look up some emotional intelligence. And so we exchanged numbers. He went home, or, went his way. And, maybe 3 weeks later, could have been less, maybe a fraction more, but I got a book about emotional intelligence 2.0 sent in the mail from me. So, and it's actually kind of like a workbook kind of thing. You like log on to the internet, you read, but then you do things that apply what you've just read. So it's a really fantastic book. Not that I'm giving it a shout out, but being a product of my environment, seeing these, to me, very successful people, what did they do? What was their journey like to get them to where they're at now? Or on the lighter side, you meet a leader, a CEO of a huge company, and he turns out throwing clubs, cursing at you, like being just the worst character that you can see in golf. And then you're like saying to yourself, at least I'm saying to myself, if this cat can be a CEO and be in charge of all these thousands of people, I can too. So over the last few years, being a product of my environment, I've really dove into learning entrepreneurship, learning leadership, really just trying to be a better version of me, take all my life experiences and bring them to fruition. So, start projects, learn coding, learn AI, learn business planning, put together a business plan, like 10 of them, just to learn how to put a business plan together. So, but yeah, it got me into that entrepreneur type of headspace. And every time that I'm out there, I feel like this is my business, my brand. This is what I got to bring to the table to represent for my players. They may not, be able to play golf for, but twice a year. but they're going to come here and they're going to get away from their family. They're going to enjoy their time with their buds. And I'm going to make sure, at least, the most important priority is to make sure they have a great experience. Right. Sometimes, and that's all it really is at the end of the day, is just making sure I represent myself, and make sure my guests are satisfied. And, being a product of my environment, I don't have to worry about some of the other things that are out there when you're in different environments. So we work around very well.
Like getting an email that needs a response to, or getting a phone call at 9:00 at night. It's like we caddy, we leave it there, and then we do it again the next day.
Exactly.
But the beauty is the people that we meet. So if you didn't meet that guy and he didn't give you that book, the change of your mindset of just being sent into creativity overdrive, maybe it doesn't happen. And I've read several books by that were recommended by people who I was looping for that day, because I look at it this way: if it's good enough for them, it's probably good enough for me, and they wouldn't recommend it if they highly didn't think it was worth my time. In fact, I'm reading a book right now recommended by one of our fellow caddies, Patrick Shantaram.
Oh yeah, give a shout out to Pat.
Yeah, you got it. Pat. And I had another guy, The Comfort Crisis by, I think it's Mark English, which is just the sedentary lifestyle we live. We should do more challenging things outdoors. And I read it specifically because it worked for him. I figure if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. All right, Denver, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Denver Longmire, professional caddy, one of my caddy buddies, is our guest here. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try Party. And if your dream is to live in a golf real estate community like Lakewood National Golf Club, Vince Visicaro and Gene Walsh from suncoastdreams.com got you covered. How important is golf been to you? This is a profound question. How important has golf been to you in your life? How big of a role does it play?
Today, it plays a big role, just because of all the lessons that come with it that are parallel with the game. When I first picked it up, and before I even started caddying, it was a weekend warrior, once a month warrior. So it wasn't that important. But when you start caddying, it becomes a way of life. And just like back when I wrestled, like in order to be good, you got to go to work. You got to go out there and loop as many as you can. You got to watch as many golf balls roll into that cup. You got to go out there and make as many mistakes as you can. As a new caddy, you're still going to be making mistakes as a vetted caddy, but it's minimal. And so the game of golf is extremely important to me, because if I take the game serious, then I can bring it into, like, for example, I've been out playing golf and went and recreated on one of the holes what my player was thinking. What's it like hitting out of these bunkers where we're at? We could tell them how to hit it, but, unless you get in there and, kind of wrap your head around what they were feeling being, intimidated in the bunkers. So, playing golf, keeping it part of your life, allows me to, be able to relate with situations and troubles like that. And not for nothing, it's the best game in the world. There's nothing better than sitting out about 75, 80 yards and hitting an accidental chip shot in, or, front of the green to the back of the green, and you just hit the perfect line. The speed is perfect, and guess what? You're making memories of dropping it into the hole.
It's such a high. It's such a high. Just flushing a shot, spinning a wedge, and knowing you got it just right. It's just like, it goes like up through your hands, your arms, and into your heart.
Yeah,
it captures you. And how is your golf now? How is your golf game now? How much are you playing?
I got a lot going on. So I'm playing maybe once every couple of weeks. I get to the range more than I play. I really enjoy taking my 52 down to the golf course around the corner there, and they have an elevated green. You got short-sided positions. You got to really, and just focus on my chipping and putting, because that's where the game is at. And, I love playing with these caddies that we have in our brotherhood, because it's a brotherhood. But, being a 6 or 7 handicap, like, I'm in the low part of the field. I mean, all the good guys, all the good caddies are turning in less than par. I mean, consistently. So, I just am really blessed to be a part of this culture that I'm in, this brotherhood. I'm blessed to be a part of this profession. It's not the most glamorous, in fact, a lot of times you're looked down upon, but, you get past that ego trip, then, it's a very rewarding profession, and I'm really grateful for it.
All right, final question here, Denver. So you've seen a lot of golf. You've played good golf, so you know what you're talking about. If you had one tip to give the golf world, a tip that could help anybody, low handicapper or high handicapper, what would it be?
Well, your game is only good as your hands. So, don't be stubborn with that grip. Go learn a proper way to handle your club and then build it from there. So, and take your time. Rome wasn't built overnight. So, just embrace it, and just remember, you got to go through the uncomfortable before you get comfortable. And golf's a true example of that.
Man, that's I wasn't expecting that, but that is a good answer. It all starts with a grip. Oh my gosh. I mean, and if you get a lesson and your grip changes, that's tough to recover from. It's best to start properly right away. I do the overlap. What do you do? Are you interlock or overlap? What do you do?
I'm interlock, and then I am very I kind of consciously flip my thumb over to just kind of lay it to this way. Like, see a lot of golfers, they put all that stress up here. They want to get after it. They want to hammer it. But meanwhile, their thumb is turning white with all the pressure on
too much. No.
So it's kind of like if you just lay that thumb over, get that stress out of your shoulders, out of that club, and then you'll have a little bit more control. So that's just my, whether I got it or not, it's just my opinion on that.
I'm with you.
But
light hand pressure. I mean, I'd say my grip, like if 1 to 10, if 10 is the death squeeze, my grip pressure is about a 2, and the club's not going to twist. All right.
Well, and then, the game starts with your hands. If you can control the face of the club, then, then you're one step above, your buddy who's not practicing it, for sure.
Yeah. Denver, really enjoyed the time. I hope you did
too. Thank you so much, Kev, dude. I've had so much fun. I feel like I rambled a little too long, but, this is a really great show. I love your episodes. I was really excited when you approached me and said, hey, come on the show, tell your story. So with all my heart, thank you so much, Kevin, for allowing me to be a part of this.
You got it, bro. Yeah, you brought the goods, and it's just two dudes talking about golf. We could talk it on a more intimate level than some others because we've both been.
I could also talk some mad shit on some things too, but I've kept it. I've kept it family oriented. So
you did a great job. All right. Hey, listen, man, I will see you on the golf course as we wrap up here. Big thanks to Party Drinks. If you're a golf course, if you're in the golf business and you don't have Party at your golf course, get it there. Paradise Craft Distributors is an exclusive distributor of Party across the state of Florida. And if your dreams include living on a golf course in a golf real estate community like Lakewood National Golf Club, then Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro from SuncoastDreams.com, a division of fine properties in the greater Sarasota area. They are your golf team. For Denver Longmire, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, My Golf Story.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at SuncoastDreams.com or call 941-220-4000.